So, first of all, welcome in the APRE office in Brussels, and welcome to all the participants that are following us online. So I just will give you, I'm Mattia Ceracchi, and I'm the head of the office in Brussels. APRE, for the people who don't know us, is the Italian Agency for the Promotion of European Research. So our role is to promote Italian participation to Horizon program. But we also have a role in specific and particular projects, I would say. So we participate in not in Horizon research and innovation activities directly, but in projects supporting research and innovation, which are in line with our mission, which is, of course, to promote Italian participation to European research and innovation funding, but also to promote research and innovation in Europe and abroad. I think this, this workshop is relevant for us, and I would like, of course, to thank the organizers. First of all, Miriam De Angelis, who is our national contact point for energy, climate, and transport, but also the coordinator of the National Contact Point Network in Europe for Cluster 5, and yeah, as I don't need to explain you how and why green transition is maybe the first relevant topic and priority at the European level, and I just would like maybe to emphasize one thing. So. Horizon Europe is a program that has put a lot of emphasis on impact, so on how European priorities defined at general level, so at the macro level, needs to have an impact on how funding is allocated. This is, I think, a key aspect of the program. Maybe it's the major novelty of Horizon Europe compared to Horizon 2020, that, European funding and European Commission, European Union in general, needs to explain how and why we invest money and we direct money in certain areas, and needs also to show to citizens, to the general public, how this money is spent. So there is this link to policy, from policy to projects. What we want maybe to share here, but Miriam will tell has more in detail, is which is the other way around, no? From projects to policy. So how the projects in this field, green transition and social instances in the green transition, can be collected from the work within Horizon funding projects and can be redirected to have a feedback to policy makers and at policy level. I think this maybe also one suggestion, one recommendation for the Commission, that we have emphasized a lot, no? What are the process from policy to funding? Maybe we need to put also an emphasis on, and more emphasis, of course. I know that you have process internally from agencies to Commission to the DGs on how to collect and analyze projects to give you some insights on policy making. And I think that is an occasion, this event is organized in the framework of the Green Week. So I think would be an occasion to present the results and ongoing work of projects, and to give some, at least some feedback, some suggestions for policymakers. So again, thank you, everybody. I would like to give the floor to Miriam, which who present the event and will moderate also the event.
Yes. Okay. Just for the sake of people online, I will stand and just very rapidly introduce, first of all, the idea behind this event. As Mattia has already pretty insightfully explained, the idea is that the social mechanism can, in fact, either impede or foster this so popular right now energy transition. Let's think about, I don't know, social resistance to certain technologies, or the diffusion of environmental values among society. These are all factors that have an impact on actually the implementation of certain policies, but also the take up of certain innovative solutions. And we wanted to go through the different solutions and the different approach that these projects that are in the agenda adopted in order to overcome such possible bottlenecks, and also bring to the table those actors that are already working on social instances, whether it's gender or it's the engagement of young people or the citizens in a urban context, so on and so forth. Just to underline the fact that incorporating socio-political behavioral insight in the transition can make, in the transition pathway, can actually make a difference. Now, getting to the more practical things, let me talk about very briefly the network of national contact points that deal with the Cluster 5 of Horizon Europe. I'm here, in fact, representing the network because I am both the coordinator of the network, but also myself a national contact point. For Cluster 5, I was a national contact point in Horizon 2020 as well for some of the let's say themes, some of the fields that are now all merged together in Cluster 5. And for those of you who don't know what national contact points do, who they are, I would go to the next slide. And again, very quickly summarize what we do. Well, first of all, national contact points provide guidance, information, support on all aspects related to Horizon Europe. I bet that living you in Brussels, you very well know what national contact points are, but probably online people don't know, and you may be surprised to learn that in Italy, for instance, there are still people that don't know what national contact points are. They are very often hosted by public organizations, but in general, national structures established by the governments of the EU member states, associated countries to Horizon Europe, and in general also beyond. So you may find them in third countries as well. They give personalized support in the language of the national constituencies. That is the added value of having a person, a contact in each of these countries. And in providing support, they have to comply with certain specific principles and rules set by the European Commission, and among them the most relevant is the confidentiality. So in case you have a proposal and you want that to be reviewed by a national contact point, don't be afraid about confidentiality or sensitive content, because in fact we cannot disclose the content to other people. In Horizon Europe, as in the past programs, these national contact points are organized in network. They are all gathered under these networks. Next slide, please.
One moment, Miriam, we have just a quick problem with sharing the slideshow with online participants, but Francesco is solving that. Okay.
Next one. Ok, è in modalità relatore, però.
I think the best way is to directly share the screen, so participants online can see the screen, and also us can. I think that's. Online, they didn't.
No, they at some point they couldn't see the slideshow. Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience. We can start back.
I think they still see in presentation mode, but if they allow, I think. Are you okay with this kind of visualization, people from home? Silence is. Okay, never mind. Well, I mean, my presentation is not the most important in the framework of this event, so I will go very, very quickly right now. Well, the networks of national contact points, and specifically the network of national contact points for cluster 5, whose title is GREENET, was launched in July last year and will last until December 2027, so until the end of the Horizon Europe. We work on 3 different trends of action. The first one is to help NCPs to be more professionalized. So we offer services, tools to other NCPs. We also work with applicants by raising the awareness about the funding opportunities offered by Horizon Europe in the framework of Cluster 5. We also organize events like the one you are attending today, getting more into the details of the different fields covered by Cluster 5. But we also offer them services, tools that are sitting on our website, and networking opportunities. In October, we will organize, in conjunction with the Info Day on Cluster 5, organized by the European Commission, a brokerage event online, which I guess will open pretty soon for what concerns the registration. However, there will be other networking opportunities throughout the year. We also have, next slide, please. Well, first, the network. As you can see, being a project ourselves, we are a consortium specifically made of 19 organizations from all over Europe, but also outside. However, we are open, I mean, our activities are open to the NCPs, also external to the consortium. To the next slide, please. GREENET itself, the network itself, this is one thing that I would like to underline, wasn't born in a void. Actually, took over the heritage of the past networks. Some of you that are, working in this field of framework programs for, I don't know, 10 years, will certainly remember ETNA 2020. ETNA is the network of transport NCPs, was the network of transport NCPs, actually launched in the 7th framework program, but we had the Sea Energy, NCP Cares, all these networks already existed. So this means that we gathered, we collected our experience from the past in order to make our services better. Next slide. This is our web page where the mentioned services and tools are sitting. And next slide, please. These are the tools. Some of them are already functioning. I'm referring to the partner search system, while others are about to be launched. We will have guides, fact sheets, videos, and infographic, a stakeholder directory, meaning a database of relevant organizations in the field of Cluster 5, where you will see actually which of these organizations may influence the through several actions like white papers, strategic documents of any kind. And in fact, in the European Cluster 5 document repository, we will have all these strategic documents issued by such association, organization, partnerships, and so on. Next slide. This is the partner search tool. This is all year round open partner search service. So you can go right now and register. You can express your interest for specific topics and set meetings with the other participants that have already registered on the platform. So again, people is validated. So once they register, they input information that gets reviewed by NCPs like me in order to make sure that the content is consistent, that people is not the client phishing on the platform, so on and so forth. Next slide. I guess it's the last one. Thank you very much for your attention. And these are some of our social media accounts. We are on LinkedIn and we are on Twitter. Connect if you're interested. And now, getting back to our agenda and not to steal more time from you, I give the floor to Cristiana Macchitelli from the DG Energy of the European Commission.
Well, good morning, everyone. Before starting, I want to thank Mattia and Helen for the invitation. As Mattia said, this is a particularly important occasion to have feedback to policy, to understand the results of the projects and feed them into the policy making exercise. Why am I here? I am Cristiana and I work in the Research and Innovation Unit of DG Energy. And I am involved in the works of work program drafting and management of Cluster 5. I would like to give a little bit of excursus of the role of research and innovation in the green transition, especially in the role of society. Firstly, starting from the broader policy context and then diving into how do we actually do this in practical terms in developing the framework program. Next slide. So it is always a bit of forgotten or in oversight that in the current geopolitical framework that we're living in, the environmental and economic and especially energy crisis, and in the crisis mode that we are all living under. There is one particular activity that can provide us with stability and technological sovereignty, which is research and innovation. Research and innovation policies can provide us with new innovative technologies through testing, demonstrating, and promoting new technologies and systems deployment, but more particularly, still in the first slide, it's fine. I can go without. But more particularly, it can provide us with social innovations, and I'm talking about plural social innovations, and this is why we're here today. Arenai, well, you can go to the first slide, really, the policy context, this one, yes. I'm losing my line. Yes. So why research innovation is important? Because it will give us, it will tell us the speed at which the energy transition will go, and it will identify at which costs and at which benefits. Let me give you a context and a little bit of numbers. For example, as shown by the latest edition of the Competitiveness Progress Report, the European Union is at the forefront of clean energy technology research. These investments are steadily growing. However, there is the need to increase both private and public investments in clean energy technologies to fully exploit the potential and overcome all the barriers. And why is that? Why it is important to increase investment, both private and public? Pay attention. Because it is estimated that half of the greenhouse emissions that we need to cut by 2050 will be cut by technologies that are not yet in the market. So the role of R&I is crucial to overcome this barrier and to make to allow us to produce So we're saying we can be at the forefront of PV deployment, but if we have a supply chain disruption from China, we are not in that position anymore. So we can say that these technologies are important for us to meet our objective of the Green Deal for 2050, but not only. All the objectives that we set for ourselves for 2030, like Fit for 55 or Repower EU, all these overarching policies need a strong R&I base. So we can safely say that there is no energy policy strategy to put forward without a strong research and innovation component. But on the contrary, there is no R&I policy that doesn't address green and also digital transition that we're living nowadays. So this is particularly important. Another aspect that is important is social innovations. So societal engagement and everything that concerns, as Miriam says, the market uptake of these technologies. We can produce and deploy all the technologies that we want, but if there is resistance, if there is lack of acceptability from the society, the market uptake will be hampered. So social innovations flourish in the community, and most of the time, local actors don't even realize that they are doing social innovation because it's something that grows natural in them. And what is special is that those innovations create a sense of ownership, a sense of agency, because they are bottom-up and they are important for the community to create lasting results. This is one of the main problems that we have with projects, because it's very difficult to monitor engagement and deployment over time after the end of the project. And in terms of research and innovation, we have Innovation Fund, Cohesion Policy Fund, LIFE projects, but now today we will focus more on the best practices and the good examples that we have from Horizon Europe and H2020 and Horizon Europe, which are the biggest R&I framework in the world. So let's go dive deep into the cluster 5, which is Climate, Energy and Mobility program, and most specifically in the integration of social sciences and humanities, social innovation, gender implications, those that are mentioned as cross-cutting topics. I think that you can go the next one. Yes. So the main novelty of this particular, this last work program compared to the previous one is that we have decided to take an approach of no longer having an ad hoc chapter under the destination that concern integration of social sciences and humanities and cross-cutting topics. That was previously under destination 2, cross-cutting solutions. Now, the social sciences and humanities and the cross-cutting dimensions are mainstream throughout the cluster. so throughout the different 6 destinations. How do we do that? I think you can go next. Know how we can do it, why we do it. So basically, why we decided to mainstream it, because it is a more of a democratized approach. It's a holistic one. We do not only pick one particular case. We try to streamline and tag the different aspects of the different chapters of the different destination, because these aspects can be embedded in both climate, mobility, and energy topics. And it is important that while we do this, we also show that throughout the results that we have had in the past H2020 projects, we realize the importance of the SSH aspects. This is what Miriam has said before. So, and also Mattia at the beginning, we learn as a feedback to policy exercise what has been important in the past, what are the barriers and challenges, and we try to put it in place in drafting the work program. So we think that there is the increased societal impact of the different technologies by embedding the SSH aspects in the topics. How do we do it? We flag the different topics. So going through the different destinations, the topics can have, must have, if they're flagged, these particular sentences. So the sentence is pretty straightforward. You can read it. The important thing is that the project needs to show that while developing the technologies or deploying it, it will be particularly important to prove that experts coming from SSH disciplines, and for those who may not know, the disciplines are all those that do not belong to STEM. So it can be philosophy, geography, economics, international relations, psychology, which anthropology. All of this is urban dimension. All of these aspects are particularly relevant for the uptake of the technologies. Next one. Just a little, give you a little bit of flavor on what's going on in the past. We're in this edition of the work program. We have overall more than 30 flagged topics, and around 13 in the energy domain, both supply and demand. Summing up to, next slide, around 115 million euros for the energy aspect. In the next slide, there is the most recent analysis that we have had from the CENEA colleagues. CENEA is the agency that implements the different topics, and we can see that more specifically, we focus on energy because of the topics today. We have around 160 million in the for topics that address social dimension in energy. What do they tackle? A brief example of what has been tackled in the past in Horizon 2020 and what is different now in Horizon Europe. So here you can find a little bit of a taste for the topics. There is, of course, a continuity. For example, if we take the coal-intensive regions in H2020, there is continuity for what is just transition, because of course, just transition is one of the pillars of the Green Deal. So we have to take all the political developments into account while drafting the topics. And also, I found it particularly interesting to mention the last study, because one of the projects in the next round will focus on the role of women in the uptake of technology. So this study will be particularly relevant for the project members. Next slide. So what it is in practical terms that we try to understand. We try to understand how to improve the acceptability of the different technologies and how these impact our everyday life. And it's not only about energy, it's also about mobility. What is the impact of using the e-scooter every day, or how do we adjust the urban dimension of the city if we want to use the e-scooters? These kind of activities, and how particularly the uptake of these technologies can disrupt the supply chain? If so, and what are the economic costs and benefits? Next slide. In terms of the cross-cutting issues, we do not only have SSH, we also have social innovation. Previously, I've talked about social innovations in plural terms to encompass all the different cross-cutting technologies, but social innovation is a category as such. So also social innovation can be flagged because it's a peculiar phenomenon per se, and it focuses on the societal impact of the different technologies, and tries to understand how the energy in our field, energy and digital transition, can impact our everyday life. Not only we have citizens engagement. In here, we also have the youth aspect, important to mention because we will have a youth speaker right after. And also, and of course, it is particular, as I mentioned before, to create this sense of ownership, because if we have bottom-up initiative and we create this sense of agency, we are best placed to have long-lasting results, especially if we try to co-create and engaging youth since the beginning. It is important to have meaningful results. And the gender aspects, but we will know everything about gender aspects later. How these are integrated. These are very technical things. I don't know whether they would interest you, but this is how we do this in the topic, whether it's an outcome or under the scope. Too technical, let's go. A brief, I mean, it's too wordy, I know, but just examples of how this year, this edition of the work program have integrated SSH. And for example, one of the topic I am in charge of are digital empowerment and digital literacy for consumers, and also increasing consumer engagement for the acceptability of the digital tools. And this is important to focus on acceptability because it's very different from acceptance. So also in cluster 5, we've tried to move from acceptance, that's rather passive, to acceptability of the tool, because it really creates the engagement from and increases the role of the society in it. I think it's the last one. Yes, so I'm shutting down. I'm sorry if it was too long, but just to give you an example of how we are improving our integration of SSH and societal innovation and gender aspects. It is not only in Horizon Europe and in Horizon 2020, we also have the missions. Missions are per se not only devoted to technological development, but they focus on the impact of the technology in the lifestyle, mission on cities, on ocean, climate. We have the Green Deal call, but also it's not mentioned here, but I mention it because we will hear about it later, the New European Bauhaus. I'm really looking forward to listening to this presentation because the New European Bauhaus is really pure social innovation. And I think that's it for me. Thank you so much. And I'm really available for any questions. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Cristiana. Your presentation is super interesting, and you were very clear. I just go closer to the screen to give the floor to our New European Bauhaus NCP from Italy, Shakitano Erminia. As mentioned, the New European Bauhaus is one of the major initiatives at the European level that encompasses all the aspects of social innovation and much more. Erminia, please take the floor and share your screen. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. I will share my screen now so we can. Okay, can you see my presentation?
Very well.
Okay, excellent. So thanks again. Thanks for your invitation. It's a great pleasure also it was also a great pleasure to hear the previous presentations. And it is also interesting to bring this cultural angle to this discussion on how to address the social distances and the social aspects of the green transition, because indeed culture can play an very important role in this. This was the idea of the President of the European Commission, von der Leyen, when she realized that the European Green Deal as such was could be perceived by citizens as a system of laws, of regulation, quite dry, quite hurried. And so she launched the idea to translate to give a soul to the European Green Deal, and to call for the engagement of the culture and creative sectors to transform, to give a soul to the European Green Deal, because indeed culture, it's an important element of, and it shapes our lives. It influences the way we live and how we shape our living spaces. So this is a kind of call towards the culture and creative sector to imagine and build together a sustainable and inclusive future that is also beautiful for our eyes, minds, and souls. Very often we hear about European initiatives as programs, initiatives, actions, calls, and so on. But I think that a more appropriate term to identify and to explain what is the European Bauhaus is to call it a movement. It is a massive participatory initiative, which started with a co-design phase during the pandemic, where all the sector was engaged in shaping the basic principles and values of the new European Bauhaus. And now it is in the full speed and in the delivery space, where really these principles and values are implemented in several EU initiatives. The new European Bauhaus community that has been engaged is huge. More than 630 official partners, actually 116 projects in place, implementing the new European Bauhaus principles and values, plus, for instance, other 99 prize winners who were awarded with the new European Bauhaus prize. This community has been also is continuously engaged in further refining and fine-tuning principles and concepts through the new European Bauhaus Lab, which is a platform to continue to work together on several important areas, such the regulatory regulation and experimentation, or the importance of reflecting on, for instance, education. What is the place of education in this? What are the possibilities to support and finance these type of initiatives to innovative funding or crowdfunding, for instance? And also there is a very important reflection. We don't have time now, but a very important reflection on the perspective of the reconstruction in Ukraine. So what are the directions? What are the types of actions that actually are in place? Supporting concrete projects and initiatives by all stakeholders to transform places on the ground. This is really the transformation of the place where we live, but also focusing on how to transform the enabled ecosystem for innovation and infusing new meanings to education and culture. It is too often neglected the key role that culture has in changing our habits, in changing our way of living our spaces and our life. In parallel, there is a huge, very important cross-policy and cross-program action implemented by the European Commission, in particular in mainstreaming the new European Bauhaus concepts in the entire EU policy context, and several EU programs that have been mobilized, and also engaging the member state to mobilize EU resources that are managed in the shared management. Just a very quick picture of the EU policy ecosystem where the new European Bauhaus is being mainstreamed. So yeah, of course, not only the Green Deal, but also cohesion policy, culture and creative sector policies. For instance, it's a very important element, a component of the Creative Europe program, but also in Erasmus and so on. So just to go a bit more in depth on what are the new European Bauhaus principles and values. First of all, the very important reflection is that what are the thematic axes of this social, of the social innovation that can be stimulated by culture. First of all, this idea of reconnecting people to nature. Regaining also a sense of belonging. It's so important. The environment, our cultural heritage, our cities are really an important component which is linked to the sense of belonging to a place. And then this is very important social aspect, prioritizing the places and people that need it the most. The green transition cannot target only those who can pay and can afford for the green transition. It's important that the green transition should be accessible to everyone, and important also neglected and in areas that need to be regenerated. And finally, the need for the long-term life cycle thinking in the industrial ecosystem. And here it's very clear, for instance, the role of design, of architecture in rethinking the way we conceive the life cycle of objects and everything that we use every day. The new European Bauhaus values that have been identified through this, as I said before, this co-creative process. So it has been shaped from top down. It really comes from the discussion between stakeholders. The three important pillars, the three important values. First of all, sustainability. Of course, addressing all the things that you know very well, the climate goals, circularity, zero pollution, and biodiversity. But this needs to be connected together to work very well. It needs to be connected also with the concept and the sense of beauty, of the quality of experience, and experience that should be inspired by art and culture, beyond the simple aspect of functionality. And finally, they together, because without inclusion, without bringing all together, without keeping the society all together, we will not reach our goals. It's very important to value diversity and equality for all, and also secure accessibility and affordability for the solution that we are planning, that we are shaping also through research. And another important element of this together is connecting diverse disciplines, connecting diverse culture, connecting diverse genders and ages. It's also a very important element that we should always keep in our mind. To make those principles very clear, the European Commission has published recently a very important, interesting tool, which is called the New European Bauhaus Compass, which orients and helps all stakeholders to design a new European Bauhaus project, but also to self-evaluate how these projects are ambitious and in which direction they should progress to increase their ambition. This is a very interesting tool that I invite you also to have a look at this tool and check and look at your projects with the eyes of the European Bauhaus working principles. And an important working principle is the multi-level engagement, which the ambition is from the global, goes from the global to local, to the place-based approach. The importance of putting in place participatory processes involving civil society and people of all ages, and also the transdisciplinarity, which I know it's very important component where all the people working in the research sector is very much aware. The concept can help those who want to plan a project, also because there is now an activity which is called the definition of the labeling strategy, and with also the putting in place and setting some self-evaluation tools. And this is the first step of this activity. So it helps to guide the decision and project makers when they design their projects to see, am I in line with the new European WRES principles? And of course, also all the stakeholders to agree on a shared vocabulary and understanding. We can see that, as we have seen the first presentation, I come from the cultural sector. I could have described the things that I've heard before from the cultural perspective. It's simply, I think sometimes we say the same things, but use different vocabularies. And it's very important to enrich our vocabulary together. And then we have 3 levels of ambitions for each value and principle to progress and to increase our ambition. Just one example, beautiful. What are the 3 level ambition of the beautiful concept? It's probably different from the aesthetic concept that you have in mind. The first element is to activate. Then we can progress towards a stronger connection, and otherwise, and then we can integrate what we do in our activity. Like the participatory process, the first step, for instance, is to consult the communities and the stakeholders. The second step is to develop, to engage them in carrying on and in working at the activities. And then the third step is to enable create a condition that for self-governing, for independent activity. In a few days, there will be the ceremony for the award of the new European Bauhaus prizes. So some of them comes from the research, like you. So I invite you to have a look and to assist at this ceremony, where you can find very interesting examples of exemplary projects and initiatives. The festival, there's now an open call for interest for the European Bauhaus Festival 2020-24. So again, if you have initiatives that you think are in line, it would be great if there are initiatives coming from the research area. The financial support comes from many programs. European Regional Development Funds, Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe is one of the most important sources of financing for NEB valued initiatives, but also LIFE, European Solidarity Corps, and so on. And the type of funding, in these slides that I will give you, you will find a link where you can find all the opportunities that are available for transformation of places on the ground, for transformation of the enabling environment, for innovation, and also for the diffusion of the new meanings, which are the 3 areas that I mentioned before as the thematic areas of action. Just an example of some of the projects that are in place: the new European Bauhaus Lighthouse demonstrators, which are supported and financed by Horizon Europe. This is with a strong focus of place-based regeneration of some cities and neglected areas. The new European Urban Initiative, which targets local authorities, just launched at the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year, we will have soon the results. So 50 million euros for innovative initiatives carried on by local authorities. Looking forward to know who won this very important initiative. Very important focus also from the ERDF funds, for instance. Focusing on co-creation of public spaces, for instance, with citizens and citizen engagement activities, again, very much in line with the previous presentation, with an important concept of citizen engagement. Cross-kick calls, for instance. This is also important for you. Some of the calls were also launched by the IIT Climate Kick. in particular on natural building materials and energy efficiency, including refurbishment of historic buildings. Here we are the national contact points. Our task is connected to liaise with the European Commission and with the national stakeholders, but also to create this bridge between national policies and EU policies. Thank you. Here you have all the links if you want to know more, but I'm also happy to respond to questions if you have some. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Suppose to come up, what's your view and what is timing?
I think Mina had to leave.
I see it. It's there.
Following you, you just told me that the connection is weak, so I'm here and following you.
Or that we forward it to you, or maybe you can answer right now, but I think that Ines shall repeat the question. Can you hear me okay?
I'll also do this. Okay, yes, so we can forward it for the question and answer session. In the meantime, from the online participants, if you want, write down your questions in the group chat. So after, for the session of question and answers, we can answer properly. Thank you.
Lisa?
Yes.
Now I mean, get back to the practical things. Well, we mentioned the participatory approach. We mentioned co-creation with the active involvement of the different parts of society. And when we talk about the different parts of society, actually the young are those that more effectively can act on values and culture, because they can still be shaped as individuals. And now let's hear from Essam El Nagar. I hope I pronounced it well. What Yes Europe Association does to make young people leaders in energy and sustainability. Please, Sam, take the floor.
Okay, good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you to Lamina for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be to give you an example of what we are doing and also to learning from your expertise. So first, I'm working mainly as a research engineer at the University of Liège, and apart from that, I'm working as a not working, but I'm country representative of Belgium at Yes Europe. So if you don't know Yes Europe refers to young leaders in energy and sustainability. So first, for what is the main problem that we can see recently and also some years ago? It has been mentioned recently in the IPCC report that there is no time for delay and no room for excuse if we would like to move forward to energy transition. So we need everyone to be involved to achieve the energy transition, and that's why we are trying to connect all the diverse network from professional, from young researchers, also from academia, from research institutes, to collaborate together, to try to tackle climate change problems, to try to move forward to a sustainable future. Next slide. So our vision mainly is to accelerate the energy transition. So I guess that's our main topic of today, or one of our main topics of today. How can we accelerate the energy transition? Next slide. So what we do, or our main role is three things. First, like we connect, we empower, and then we give a platform for young leaders who are passionate about energy and sustainability across Europe. So as I said, our first mission or our first rule is to connect. So like by connecting like the diverse network from people who are interested into energy and sustainability and climate change, students and young professionals in Europe, and also people who are working on engineering, policy, and business. We do the connection between all of the three, I would say, like categories. And by developing this meaningful connections, we try to empower youth to accelerate energy transition and to share the knowledge about diverse topic like buildings, renewable energy, climate change. I would say all of the topics that are related to energy and buildings and climate change. We are working on that, and to try to do this engagement, as I said, to shape the sustainable future in Europe. Next slide. The second rule is to empower. So we are trying to not only to connect people, but how, like after connecting, how can we provide some like strength points and tools for our people to have like a meaningful connection. It's not only that we are connecting them, but how can we empower them for having some tools about knowledge about energy and sustainability. So we are trying to, from time to time, or I would say like all over the year, to do some sessions about energy sustainability, climate change, and also to, on the other side, to also have some topics related to project management and leadership. So during our year, we organize many local and international events. I will come later to that for both sides to empower them for having some meaningful tools. Next slide. So how can we do that? We are working on a platform. So either we have like some members of this Europe, or even if you are not member, you can join our platform where you can see all of our tools, all of our events, all of our like public meetings, if you are interested to do that. And at the moment, we are close to be like 400 members in Yes Europe. And in this platform, we have like the local teams. So we are at the moment in more than 20 countries in Europe. So you can also like have some like local events. You can also like try to, if you have an idea, if you would like to organize something yourself. So it's not only that we're organizing some stuff ourselves, but also if like one of our participants have an idea to share, or like an event, or like you would like to do a podcast or something, it's also like available on our platform. Next slide. So how do we work? We have like different teams. I guess they are more or less clear from the names, but I will give you an idea. We have like the strategy and integration team, and the strategy and integration team is more or less leading all of our teams. So we have country representative teams. So for each country, we have one country representative. So myself, I'm representing Belgium. We have project management team, we have policy team. So policy team, since we are really working and being involved in policy topics, so we have one team who is only working on policy in Europe. We have communication team, we have partnership team who's like mainly involving in doing the partnerships between like our organization and doing collaboration with different organizations. We have a finance team who is trying to more or less find some answers for our organization. Yeah, maybe I didn't mention, but we started in 2016. And in 2020, we have been officially an NGO. So that's why we, from time to time, we have to find some new collaboration for sponsors or partners to try to cover our events. And then I would say our main work is mainly in the knowledge sharing team. So next slide. For the local events, local teams, as I said, we are currently existing in more than 20 countries. Sometimes we are like 21, sometimes we go back to 19, because like depending on the availability of the members across Europe, but at the moment you are 21 teams. Next slide. So what do we do at CEST Europe? What are our main activities and our main events? Next slide. I just mentioned in the previous slide that our main work is represented in knowledge sharing team. So in the knowledge sharing team, first, every year we do an annual report. It's not about our activities. We have like annual report for our main activities, but we have also something called the Future of Energy report. So every year we try to tackle what is the most common topic in Europe. So for example, this year we are trying to have a report for each single country in the member states of the European Union to see like how far are those countries from achieving the energy targets by 2030 and 2050, since like after the conflicts between and what's going on between Russia and Ukraine, we can see that not all of the countries are following the plans that has been existing like 4 to 5 years ago. So at the moment, our reports that I guess it will be available in a few months, that you can have an idea about like the different countries, starting from Belgium, like East and West, and Europe, how those countries are far from achieving the energy targets. And we also like do podcasts. So like we do podcasts with like anyone who is interested to share some knowledge about energy. So if any one of you is interested to talk and share thoughts about energy or sustainability or climate change, you are more than welcome to collaborate with us. And in the podcast team, we have also like a blog where we also share our like deliverables, opinions, and thoughts from our members and also from our external experts. And we do publications other than our Future of Energy report. We have also like some local reports. So each team, each like 1 or 2 years, they also publish one report about what's going on the country for the topics that we are working on. Next slide. Apart from that, we do annual conferences. So we started in Lausanne in 2016. So like till now, we're like all the years we're like following annual conference, except in the COVID in 2020. But this year we already did our annual conference in Athens. It was in April. And in this annual conference, we also like have some kind of publications, like from young researchers, from PhD students, also like some professionals. And we also like each year we have a specific themes that we are trying to cover. Either it's like energy, digitalization, or climate change, where we are sharing thoughts from external speakers. So mainly we learn from the expertise of the speakers, and also we invite anyone who is interested to join. Next slide. Apart from our local events, we also do international events. So we started like some years ago by doing summer camps for it was like part from European Green Deal, and after that we did a climathon. And actually this year we are also organizing a session in EUSAW, and actually we have a partner from RISCO. We have like a colleague from you who is joining our session. So this year we are going to discuss and organize a session about like youth involvement in energy communities, and we are going to discuss the environmental, social, and economic aspect of the engagement of young leaders in energy communities. If anyone is interested, you can join our session. It's either physically or you can join online. It will be on the first day, on 20th of June. Next slide. As I said, we are existing in more than 20 countries, so we do local events. So either the local events can be sometimes on the language of each country, or they can be most of the time in English. So we do like events, as you can see. This is just an example, but like each country already they had their own event before. we did like an event before. It was between Sweden and Finland about like empowering talents, women's perspective in the Nordic energy industry. Like we did events in Malta about energy and sustainability. We did events in Germany about hydrogen. We did also like events in Italy. We did like events in Belgium before. We did events in like Australia. It was just like some days ago. So we're like wherever you are in Europe, you will find that we are existing. Next slide. And also, as I said before, that we have like a policy team who is really involving in and working in policy topics. So we are discussing all the diverse topic of policy. So it's either like we do some policy trainings sometime, inviting similar speakers, and we do some, I would say, like short videos explaining some topics. Sometimes we do like local events. Next slide. So mainly like our impact. So like last year, we have been invited to have like our delegation in COP27. So we had like some members went, and also like this year, we will have our second delegation to COP28. Yeah, at the moment, we have like more than 5,000 followers on LinkedIn. We have more than 20 publications, international or local publications. And till now, we have organized more than like 10 international and local events only for last year. Next slide. So yeah, that's all from my side. You can find us either on our website. If you're like using Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram, you can find us. Thank you.
The gender and because it's pretty clear that women have a role in it because they are actually the most affected by certain phenomena like energy poverty, for instance, but also because they are a big part, I guess, 30% roughly of the professionals in the energy sector. So in a way, they are, how to say, an actor that cannot go disregarded. But Antonia, please.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Miriam. If it's problematic there, I also have my USB for the PowerPoint. I just shared the PDF. If that helps, let me know. Otherwise, yes. I will start by saying, by introducing RESCOP-EU. In fact, I work for RESCOP-EU. We are the European Federation of Citizen Energy Cooperatives. I have been working there for the past around 3 years by now, but before joining RESCOP-EU, actually, I was doing research on the topic of energy cooperatives and what is the impact that they have and they could have on shifting our energy system towards a more sustainable pathway. So on the next slide, you can see like RESCOP-EU is actually, we founded back in 2013. So this year we are we're celebrating, let's say, 10 years of successful, if I may say, existence. We are about 15 people in the team, and we represent about 1,900 energy cooperatives across the EU. On the next slide, you can see what do we mean with energy cooperative. So we actually define energy cooperative not strictly. So we're not using like the statute, for instance, to define, because energy cooperatives can use different types of organization, different legal forms. But we follow the several international cooperative alliance principles. I'm not going to go through them. You can see through my presentation, I will be getting back to them actually to define again the energy cooperative concept. On the next slide, you can see that about 2 years ago, actually, we started working more like coordinated, let's say, on the topic of gender and gender justice. As Miriam said, indeed, in the energy sector is, I think, around 30%. Depends, of course, on what particularly you're focusing on. And we wanted to also see what is happening in the sector of the energy cooperatives, energy communities. One thing that I should say that, in fact, research shows that the more sustainable, the renewable energy organizations are actually employ more women than the traditional fossil fuel-based industry. And of course, that's why we were hoping to see that we're going to get more and more women also in the engaged in the energy cooperatives. Therefore, with the Gender Power Working Group, we really, one of the focus of us is to really empower women, but also because when we talk about gender power, we tend to put all the attention on the work and the effort that women need to put. I disagree, and we disagree. Also, men actually need to take action to enable the participation of women. On the next slide, you can see that, in fact, I mentioned that with Gender Power Working Group, we started systematizing the work because, in fact, energy cooperatives are already aligned with the gender equality. So revisiting some of the principles that I mentioned, of the 7 principles, cooperative principles. First, obviously, voluntary and open membership. Everyone is invited to take a share and participate in the cooperative without any gender, social, racial, political, or religious discrimination. Democratic governance, one person, one vote. Everyone's opinion counts in the context of energy cooperatives. And then our focus is on education, training, and information provision. So the goal of energy cooperatives is really to empower people, to enable the self-empowerment of people involved. On the next slide, you can see that actually RESCU-EU has also, being part of Cooperatives Europe, has also signed the Gender Equality Charter of Cooperatives Europe, focusing on the decent employment and help to reduce inequalities which affect the most vulnerable people, including women. So this sentence of there that help reduce inequalities, again, I make the connection that it's not only a work for women, it's a work for everyone. On the next slide, we can see that RESCU-EU, in fact, when it was founded, it already had in mind the gender justice. So you can read it over there. So when we have like our director, is actually the role of the director is taken care of by 2 people of different gender. So our director is a male, Sian, but we also have our vice director, that is actually Nuri Palmada from Som Energia, and across all the members of the board actually are represented in our board by people of 2 different genders. So this was already on our mind. With the team, again, we have started a long process of really like the team has actually changed. It's like more people, fewer people. This is just like one of the first meetings that we had. Again, notice that it's not only women. We have been designing our ambition statement. In the next slide, you can see that it's online, actually. We have also translated it to, if I'm not mistaken, 8 different languages, and we try to empower all the members across the different parts of the EU to really work towards the achievement of the ambition. With this ambition statement, we actually really focus on a lot of different issues, like the visibility. Communication is one point, maybe the easiest to start with, I would say. But we also talk about the legal framework, so the change of statutes. We talk about support, training, and empowerment of women and men to work towards gender justice. And the focus on, in fact, removing the barriers, really like making sure that we're gonna support the abolition of any kind of structures that are in place that block women from participating on an equal foot with their partners in the energy cooperatives. And on the next slide, you can see that the main focus
is, of course, to have like a just energy transition, meaningful participation of people of all genders as active actors and beneficiaries. Because, of course, we as energy cooperatives, we think that people, by joining an energy community, an energy cooperative, can actually contribute through the decision-making power, but they can also take benefit of their active involvement in the local context. And this, of course, will result in an improvement of the quality of life of all. On the next slide, you can see the three kind of major commitments. I really recommend that you have a look on the ambition statement. Here, I wanted to focus on the commitments. First commitment, gender equality closing statutes by 2023, because as I mentioned, this action started already 2 years ago, or as soon as possible. Reflecting the principle of gender equality in the composition of our governing bodies by 2023, or the next board. Again, we left it open to enable its implementation without us needing to adjust it, and aiming our efforts at achieving a gender balanced and just membership. That's, of course, the hardest. It's like the direct impact on the way we organize, and then the next step is to really enable the participation of everyone. On the next slide, you can see like we started with the campaigning. Really like we take the opportunity to really make as much noise as we can and to put out there the faces of women. So on the next slide, you can see we have like a lot of posts about the role of women in energy cooperatives. This is, for example, Erika Martinez from GREENET in the Basque Country. We had a very interesting piece about her role and the role of GREENET in the region. In the next slide, you can see that we have different videos from different members that we shared what they are working on, and in inviting people to really jump on this kind of train of gender justice. On the next slide, I think we're not going to do it, but I really recommend that you take a look on this video, because the issue of age, indeed, it was mentioned previously. When we talk about gender, maybe this is an opportunity to mention that gender is not only, first of all, it's not black and white. It's not women vs men. It's really like more like it's a spectrum of different options in between. And plus, it's not only the issue of the sexual orientation. It's like it involves age, the age factor. It involves the socioeconomic factor. It's a complex issue, and we really like when we work on this in the context of RESCU-PU, we try to do as much as we can to, let's say, address all the different challenges. On the next slide, I just took some different screenshots of different activities that we have been involved in with different meetings, different workshops or webinars online, where we really zoomed on the different strategies of the members of RESCU-PU. So again, communication campaigns, the particular actions involving the mapping of the different challenges, involving the surveys, creating some kind of safe spaces for the women, particularly involving the communities and the cooperatives. And on the next slide, you can see that you can see that we have been also linking with the experts. Of course, we started by learning from each other, but we have also been involving experts to learn from them and really connect research with the action world. So we, for instance, here's some slides about the impact of gender just energy communities, about the gender tools and instruments that can be used, the main barriers. We have also contributed and collaborated with the WECF for a survey, for instance, really to map what is the status of energy cooperatives, some of our members, specifically the barriers that they're facing and what are the good practices that they put in place. So we are really looking forward to deepen our understanding of where we stand so that we can actually address the challenges that are present. And on the next slide, I have here one of the quotes of Erika, because last month we had also the spring gathering in the context of our General Assembly, and we had one session focusing on the gender justice element, really like working with particular tools, and we invited some of our more like front-running members to share practices, and I really liked the quote of Erika. Gender equality is no longer a wish, something abstract and unplanned based on goodwill or ideas, but a political decision that grants rights and obligations within the cooperative. So we really like nowadays we're still not in the point of yeah, it would be nice, let's have like a couple of women on the pictures. No, we need to get serious. This is a situation that we really need to address, and we need to start working now. And on the next slide, you will see that some of our members, as I mentioned, they have been already working on this for a while, and they have already achieved a lot of things. So just going to go through this quickly. I already mentioned the safe space, workshops for empowering women, ecofeminism workshops, the issue of monitoring where we stand, really like mapping the situation in the cooperative. For instance, like on this, it was very interesting for me when I heard that to join exactly because in most of the European countries, women are responsible for taking care of the children in a family. The issue of language and communication is very critical. I have to say that I really appreciate today that in most of the presentations I saw indeed like a woman. It's very critical that when we talk about energy transition, not to only have like male, I don't know, serious or happy or whatever kind of pictures, but we really need to use the right pictures when we are to communicate about the topic if we wish to be inclusive. And the language, the way we communicate overall, like in certain English is a little bit better on that front, at least. In certain languages, we really need to start adjusting a little bit some words to make space for the woman to identify with any kind of call. When it comes to the board, the participation, the board, and it's research, we found, in fact, that women, before taking the decision to join a board, they really need to have a very clear understanding of the different responsibilities that they would have. Before saying yes, they really need to have the clarity. Additionally, they really, if it is like an open call, so just tell us if you want to become member of the board, just let us know. No, this doesn't work. Women really need to be like invited, kind of on one-to-one kind of level for them to participate. That from Somenergia, Catalonia, then GREENET from the Basque Country. I mentioned they have like the protocols. They have actually now 4 women are president of the cooperative. They really like go all the way. They have like this kind of leadership in the cooperative. They, again, the issue of language, improvement in the use of language, visibility of women. and the gender perspective is integrated into all processes. This is something that we should really keep in mind, that it's not just indeed, as it was mentioned earlier, it needs to be really cross-cutting. It's not just an afterthought. It's something that whenever we do, whatever we do, we really need to have on mind the issue of how do we integrate, how do we actually get the gender dimension on board, and how can we really make sure that our results are actually going to be reflecting gender justice. On the next slide, I think as I'm getting towards the end of my presentation, I just wanted to say that in the process of deepening the work that we're doing also at RESCU, we're now in the process of, in fact, adapting our statutes, moving from the two natural persons of different gender towards at least one member identifying as a female. Why is that? In fact, it came from our French member that wanted to participate in the board meetings with two women, and with the previous statement, it was not able to do so. And plus, by having this kind of statement there, we opened the space for people that identify differently than they were born, let's say, with the sex that they were born. So again, just to make sure that we really have everyone on board truly. And I think that the last slide, I just, we need to really be cautious that we don't use women really as like the trophies of diversity. Again, I want to repeat that when we talk about gender justice and when we want to present what we do, and also when we're organizing events and stuff, we talk about, okay, you organize an event, you need to have like a gender balanced participation. But sometimes it's really painful to see that some women are there only because, yeah, we need to tick that box. No, when we invite, and it's an excuse because there's so many women actually in the sector. We have been starting compiling lists of experts. So if you need an energy expert, a woman, female energy expert, just reach out really, because we want to give the floor to everyone, because only this way we can actually advance in the whole challenge. And I think this was, if I'm not mistaken, yes, this was my last slide. I'm happy to receive questions. Unfortunately, I would have to leave in about 30 minutes, I think.
Yeah, but in case we will forward it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you can.
Thank you very much.
For all the speakers of this first session, I don't know whether some other speaker have to leave during the coffee break. So if you have questions, please, for Cristiana Marchitelli, for Sam El Nagar, or for Antonia Proca. And we also have Erminia Shakitano again. Please make your questions now. I believe this is the most efficient way, even though we have a question and answer session at the very end of this event. Do we have any question from here? No. Do we have any questions from home? Line participants? Let me check the chat tab. There are.
I replied to one question in the chat, and maybe we can share.
Label self-evaluation system be published. Have you got an overview of indicators used in the project to show impact of culture on the transition? Okay, so Erminia, you want to read your answer? You want to a bit explode the issue, or you prefer me to just read?
No, it's a work in progress actually, and this is I know that the first focus is more on the built environment, on buildings. So the self-assessment tool is expected to be published by mid-2024, and then there will be a testing phase by all stakeholders. So actually what we have is only the compass. We don't have those information about in detail about the tool, but it's it will be published very soon.
Okay. We also had a question from Ines that you maybe didn't have the chance to hear earlier. Ines, are you still interested in getting feedback or?
Yes, but I don't have the links to the meetings.
Yeah, but you can come here on the group.
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Can you hear?
Yes.
I think my question was on, once you have the principles in place, is the ultimate objective of the project to then include them and integrate them into applications so that they are part of the eligibility criteria? The reason I'm asking that is because we work with a lot of SMEs, innovators, organizations, and between now and when you have the principles in place, we still don't incorporate all these points, the culture, the social, I work mostly with generators, distributors, so bigger capacity, electricity or energy generation. And it feels like this is something that needs to go alongside applications today. So maybe a long question to ask from the European Commission and everybody else, when do you think this can be integrated in the process?
What is the bridge between the principles and the applications? And now the practical actors can get on board. Do I understand right?
Yes, but also, are you working this in silo? You have a report at the end of 3 years, and this is another project on the shelf, or is this the ultimate goal, being integrated in everything Horizon Europe, let's say?
Well, that's the question for the European Commission. I'm a national contact point, so it's too high for me. What I can say is that the compass is available. So the first document where you can have the values and principles framework, it's there. And it's also accompanied by some examples, practical examples. The question is, it was very clear that that this document should be clear for non-cultural stakeholders, which probably need to have those principles and values very, very clear on their desk when they're planning and they want to implement. I think that the compass is already a very good tool. And I have an experience, for instance, of a regional authority who has used the compass to plan capacity building scheme for stakeholders. And we have together tested and used the compass, the existing tool, to develop, to write the call, and also to identify the criteria for the evaluation, to identify the stakeholders. So I can say that the existing document is already a very good reference. Then, of course, it will be fine-tuned and revised with the new document, but I really suggest to have a look at the document, because for this type of activities that you mentioned, I think it can be enough.
Thank you.
The purpose is really to label project, to say what is a new European Bauhaus project, because it's mentioned everywhere, but then say what makes a project a new European Bauhaus project.
Okay, maybe Erminia, I may add that there is in the cluster 5 calls for proposals that are pretty technical, like the one on the smart buildings, a reference to the European Bauhaus. And of course, in order to build the credible consortia for those topics, for those founding opportunities, you have to integrate the kind of actors that you are presenting today or with whom you work. And in preparing the proposals, they have to take into account the NEB principles. So I guess this is already a sort of a bridge between this. Otherwise, as I understand, there is still this phase, but maybe also Cristiana may eventually correct me, where there is the theoretical framework that is passed to the implementative actors. We will see in the next phase whether they will be
directly involved in developing the framework itself. I don't know. My speculation. May I add a larger consideration? What is very important with the compass is that helps all stakeholders to understand that all the elements at the basic level, at the first level, should be in. For a project to be labeled as New European Bauhaus, all the first level of values and working principles should be there to be labeled as New European Bauhaus project. And then the compass describes how you can progress in all those directions to increase your ambition. But it's very important because the first level it's not enough to have for instance, to focus on energy efficiency in one building without considering the social elements of inclusion and of aesthetic and beauty. I think it's very important.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Herminia, for your participation and feedback.
This unfortunately doesn't fall in my unit's portfolio, but I can liaise with the colleagues who deal with Destination 4, so the buildings that we have the NEB topics, and also with the Directorate Research and Innovation, who are project leader on this. I will be happy if Ines wants to translate the question in writing. I will be happy.
Yes, as she can send it to me, then we'll confirm the QCC.
Yes.
Then thank you very much to all. Let's enjoy the coffee break, and thank you for those speakers that have to leave. Ciao Erminia, grazie mille.
Thanks, ciao.
Okay, so after our first session about policies and instruments, we can start now our second session for best practices and methodology. Our mission in APRE is to actually connect all our projects into the fabric of actually society and our stakeholding engagement activity. So we would like to give, thanks to our speakers, an overview of our 5 actually EU-funded energy-focused projects, in which Alpha has different roles, from coordinator to, of course, a technical partner. And we can start from W4RES, which will be introduced by myself, because we in APRE are responsible of the raising awareness part, but I'll give step by step. Okay, let me 1 moment and I share my screen. Can you see my presentation properly? Yes. Okay, so the project W4RES was funded by Horizon 2020, and it started in November 2020. The complete title is Scaling Up the Involvement of Women in Supporting and Accelerating Market Uptake of Renewable Energy Sources for Heating and Cooling. That's a very long title, and we used to shorten it W4RES, I mean Women for Market Uptake of Renewable Energy Sources for Heating and Cooling. I mean, the starting point is the fact that the energy sector is one of the most unequal sectors in terms of gender balance, both in workforces, participation in decision-making, and productive use of energy. Another fact to be considered is the fact that, statistically speaking, from the data of the World Health Organization, women and children represent the biggest part of the annual 5 million of deaths by inner pollution for the use of toxic energy sources. So the heating and cooling system, which is mainly connected to buildings and to, heating and cooling domestic households, needs to urgently shift towards renewable energy sources. And women as main users of energy in many areas of the world hold the great potential as leaders of this shift. And they can contribute actually to reach the 2030 European climate goals. I mean, another factor to be considered is the fact that the higher participation of women, men, but in general, all gender, as Antonia said before, can increase social acceptance and thus trust in energy transition, can make energy transition something more affordable by everybody, also because, as Antonia mentioned before, women are also mainly affected by energy poverty, which is a very important topic, of course. So Women4RES is a project that supports the uptake of renewable energy sources in heating and cooling from a gender-driven perspective, and that's quite obvious from the title, but it starts from taking into consideration the framework of 8 different markets located in 8 different national labs. So we are 12 partners from 8 European countries. So we have 8 different markets: Greece, Italy, Bulgaria, Slovakia, Norway, Germany, Belgium, and Denmark. So our main idea for this project was to deep dive into framework of condition and regional specificities of this problem of the energy renewable heating and cooling market in these 8 countries, and trying to assess enablers and barriers to RIC uptake. So from this slide, you can see what our 3-year project is in a nutshell. I mean, of course, this project is carefully built on the gender disaggregated data and insight from market actors and stakeholders, as well as successful cases of women leading RIC projects. And our main goal during this past 2.5 years, because our project will finish in October 31st of this year, was to develop a suite of flexible and cost-effective support measures with high reapplication potential. We deployed our measure actually on the field, offering technical and business support to a project who applied for 2 different calls so we prepared during these past few years. And we tried to also give some legal, institutional, financial solution to the challenge, to the emerged challenges. So we also give advices to the production of feasible and sustainable business model fit to the proper market. And in parallel, we empower decision makers to leverage a gender perspective into the projects and policies to improve acceptance. And we also, for example, just a brief example, we do a lot of co-creation workshops in several renewable energy sectors to help people of the sector to create their own gender equality plan. So another activity, I mean, wrong slide, just to finish, another aspect very important was the raising awareness campaign, as I was mentioning before. I mean, we tried to create a more, to leverage on interest on how much this question is actually very pivotal in the development of this sector, because it can seem like just an imposition, an add-on to something different, but actually is something that has to be fitted into, because we also try to monitor and evaluate all the performances and the impacts, as we mentioned before. It is a key for the development of the framework program in the evolution from Horizon 2020 to Horizon Europe. And just keeping a bit of the, okay, so just to focus on our outcomes, we will produce, we are producing RIC market uptake reports. We created a Women4RES dedicated observatory, and of course the 8 regional labs I was mentioning before. And also, we delivered this kind of support scheme from promising women lead RIC projects, and we led the RIC national campaign in each of the countries. And finally, we provided some Women4RES learning toolkits through hackathons, training workshops, and the Women4RES guidelines. So no, I'm just okay. No, that's at some point that we would like to show some of the work of our advisory board, which is also composed by Christine Linz, which is the author of this couple of slides we are going to integrate in our presentation. Christine Linz is an example of one of the women we decided to involve in our advisory board because she has 25 years of professional experience in field of renewable energy sources and energy efficiency in general. And currently she is working for Global Women Network for Energy Transition, which aims at empowering women in sustainable energy sector. And I mean, this is a non-profit organization founded 5 years ago, and which currently has 2,800 members from more than 100 countries. And I mean, we really like this kind of the fact that she shows this quote talking about the energy transition as something which is multidimensional, complex, non-linear, and non-deterministic. So Women4RES objects are to radically reform the existing energy supply and energy systems, to create, I mean, more clean energy sources, in particular wanting to tackle energy poverty, and in general as a long-term impact to change consumption, distribution, and investment patterns, coalition and capabilities of actors, and new social technical regimes of policies, regulation, mindset, beliefs, and social practices. Currently, there are 12 million people employed in renewable industry worldwide, and it is a very successful thing to compare to the last decade. But this number is also supposed to increase to 42 million by 2050. And there is a huge potential for increasing in creating new job positions. And but from the data we are seeing from Christine Linz, we see that the average share of women in renewable energy sources is just 32%, which is higher, of course, than the presence of women in the oil and gas industry. So that's an interesting data because we can see from that how women are more going towards to be employed in renewable energy sectors. So they prefer, if you have to choose an employment in the energy sector, they choose renewable energy sources. But of course, this share can be increased because it's not even, I mean, half of the presence of workers in this field, as we mentioned before. So during Women4RES, we make a lot of, surveys, statistics, and requests for feedbacks and inputs. And in particular, this graph is showing how the perception agreement with the statement, women participate as much as men in RHE sector by country. So we can see each of the 8 regional labs. And of course, the perception among countries are quite different, and it has been noted that male respondents overestimate more often female participation, so they are unaware basically of how this participation can be actually increased. So another example is the fact that this statement was, there is a lack of female participation on decision-making position, and on that, luckily, our interviewee responded that it was a significant factor, in particular, the lack of women participation in public authorities roles in renewable energy sectors. And because sometimes from the data it also emerged that, yes, women has a lot of interest and position inside this field, but sometimes, most of the times they have administrative roles, which are of course less paid, and they require less responsibility, because not because women don't want them, but because they're not allowed to obtain them. So in March 2021, W4RES partners have conducted a case study in order to highlight valuable and helpful insights and patterns. All interviewees were powerful women in different sectors, and approximately half of the interviewees do not know about women empowerment measures in their organization, like, for example, quotas, flexible working hours to create a proper work-life balance, career programs, and something like that. Of course, as I was mentioning before, in an administrative organization, women can more easily access to position, but administrative position, and sometimes they have to decide for a part-time job because they don't have yet the option to choose more flexible hours in order to have a family, for example. Another observation that our partner WECF, it's Women Engaged for a Common Future, which is a network of women empowering organization. They noticed that they had many feedbacks and experiences about the fact that women in this sector sometimes quite often decide not to stay in the sector once in it, because at first they have the will to join renewable energy sector, but then they are obliged to leave because they experience sexism in workplace, unfriendly familiar workplace, and lack of opportunity for career evolution, because sometimes they find some stuck in an administrative position, for example. So they identified some kind of main principal barriers. We are both financial, lack of funding for RIC solutions, personal, for example, lack of many advertised female role models, regulatory to high bureaucracy, and structural, for example, as I was mentioning before, missing family and gender programs, glass ceiling, and something like that. So that was because we make also some graphs about these perceived barriers. And of course, most of their male colleagues actually did not recognize the presence of different hiring procedures among women and men. So, of course, also women themselves carried on stereotypes about women lacking of technical skills about renewable energy sectors. So, and also there's also an important wage gap among the things that disencourage women engaging into these processes. So the fact is there's also an increased lack of support for female entrepreneurs in the sector. And another, for example, is that's about the stereotypes. And so we tried to create a virtuous cycle, because the awareness raising is the basis to create a more sensitive and reachable society in terms of transformation. But also, we also have to improve the access to STEM. I mean, of course, you all know it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics field. Also, starting with the interaction from a young age, so focusing on educating to gender equality, but also to career perspective and encouraging skills development in technical and digital fields for children starting from a young age. Clear targets for working condition and targets, then women empowerment and leadership, considering actually being able to base the reports on gender disaggregated data, which also includes factors like not only statistic divided by sex, but sex assigned by birth, but also other social aspects. For example, as Antonia was mentioning before, racial component, educational attainments, social status, just to consider the fact that all these aspects actually intersects inside the gender perspective. So gender perspective is not something related merely to female or male in terms of data, but as a general condition of how social components actually interfere, here quoting, with our access to renewable energy sources. So it's once again, there are many instruments that you can see. They're all connected for policies and solution, from gender auditing to training, gender awareness, to creating more, much deeper awareness on opportunities and also in technological opportunities in the development of renewable heating and cooling. I mean, but also fairer and more transparent internal processes for hiring procedure, appraisal, promotions, in order to tackle the fact that there are someone behind who pulls the threads and actually create this gap. But also another important data to consider is the fact that according to the data of European Institute for Gender Equality, the gender impact on gross domestic product and employment is quite considerable, because their study from 2017 found out that closing the gender gap in STEM education could have a positive impact on economic growth in all EU, contributing to an increase in gender domestic product per capita of going to 0.7 to 0.9 by 2030, and even from 2 to 3 million by 2050. And they also predicted the fact that a closure in gender pay gap by 2015 can create from 6 to 10 million, approximately, million jobs that should have that can be added to the European economy, and 70% of these will be occupied by women by this provision. And also a study by McKinsey and Company, so also not something actually perceived in a gender perspective, showed that the gender parity gap will be obtained in by 2050, as I was mentioning before, can create an increase of global annual gross domestic product of around 26%. So, I mean, W4RES suggests a wide range of instruments to increase the share of women in every sector. And you can, of course, visit on our pages of LinkedIn, our website, our Raising Awareness campaign on the CEST Scientists, which is a women association of women in scientific fields. And for any question, you can ask to both me and Miriam, which is our Italian project coordinator. Thank you. Okay, so after our next speaker is our colleague from the projects SuperEye and SuperShine. SuperEye and SuperShine are two projects focused on social housing, and it will be presented by Jürgen Ritzke from EEIP, Energy Efficiency and Industrial Energy.
I can sit here as well, is that okay?
Okay, just
where can I flip through here? This,
no, yeah, but I think Francesco is doing it, as you chose before.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, hello everybody. Thanks for the invitation. As she said already, I'm talking about two projects. These are basically, sister projects, twin projects, you can say. One is following the other. There's not only an overlap. You can say the second one is building on the first one, is leveraging a lot what the first one shall deliver. It's not the case that the first finishes and the second starts. It's a real overlap. The first one is from Horizon 2020. The second one is Horizon Europe. You can see already, we talked about Bauhaus. You can see already Bauhaus being, part of, reference to in the second one, which is the Horizon Europe project, which is less the case in the first one. The second one, Super Shine, is basically from an outgoing perspective just going live. So we will even use a joint website because they're so close. But the second project is not yet visible on that website. It's just in preparation. So it is let's say reasonably new. The first project has a phase which is basically about analytics, data gathering, intelligence generation, and a second phase where this is more towards the implementation, and we are more or less in the middle of it. So we are moving towards the end of the gathering of the analytical part, and the second one obviously is just starting. It's just getting its act together. So on the slides here, they are coming a bit one after another, but some of them are basically applicable for both. And I will refer to that a bit like this. Some of them are a bit full. You don't have to read them as usual. The Super I project, in principle, has two main objectives. It is about energy efficiency first. So it's about energy efficiency. But you could, it's not mentioned here more or less, but you could give it the headline decarbonization. Because the second big objective is about increasing the share of renewables. So you have these two things. Where this is very generic, it is focused on the building sector, which is fairly known, one of the most important sectors on the decarbonization roadmap. But here, and that is reasonably specific, it is focusing on the social housing sector. We have heard today about a rather, let's say, broad gender definition, where gender definition also includes economic situation. You can see that here. I will show you a few figures, what it means. People who, let's say, need to live in social housing conditions. What does that reflect on the other side? In what kind of living conditions do these people live? Sometimes you have to say exist, probably. So it is specific to help them. We talked about public and private finance. You mentioned we need to accelerate private finance. A lot public finance can just be the starting point, the kickoff, very often. This is very much about, it's called about public-private partnerships, but it's very much about innovative tools which are capable of accessing the private finance market. Which is also a common truth, everybody knows. It's not a problem that we have a lack of money. There are hundreds of billions everywhere. You can have money as much as you want. It is the route to the money, the access. The money, the tools, how you channel the money, that is a problem. It's not the money itself. The money is there. How to open the tap, how to get the money, how to pull the money in for your project. That is a key thing. And that is what this one is here very much working on. Some people would call it financial engineering. It is, it's called innovative finance. Depends on, what your experience is. If you have a bit of experience in finance, it's not super innovative, but most people have no clue. And for them, it is very innovative. So public-private partnership is nothing very special. You will see later on a bit about energy service contracts, guaranteed savings, risk-sharing facilities, all that kind of stuff. Most people, that's innovative finance. Bottom line, that is, to a certain extent, the basics. But they're not often analyzed and applied to specific areas, specifically when it comes to social housing. That is something which easily is off the radar. Sometimes from the governmental, from the public side, but specifically from the investment community side. Public or social housing doesn't seem to be an investment opportunity where you can get very high returns. Because that's the obvious thing. That's why they're not really coming together. Okay, so that's talking a bit about the ecosystem. I mentioned already, we talk about the investor communities, we talk about the public side of it, because the social housing sector is organized in a different way than a typical apartment building investment, which belongs to an insurance company's property arm. So usually the money for social housing comes from the public budget. And then you have social housing companies. These are, organizations of different legal forms in different legal companies in different countries. So also the budgeting side is very different. They're not necessarily fully profit oriented. And so this causes also some problems. But there is the intermediary here, which is very relevant when it comes to the financial engineering. Yeah, it's called the ESCOs, the energy service companies. It's again, ESCOs are an old participant in that game, but not necessarily on the social housing side. Yeah, but these are basically the companies you would talk to when you talk about energy service contracts. Yeah, it's not necessarily something you do directly between a bank and a social housing company. So in the consortium, we have therefore the consortium lead is has a lot of as a financial expert from a university. There's Social Housing Europe and social housing companies on the ground. So we have real social housing sites in Italy, in Denmark, in Slovenia, which we can work with, and we have the real financial people in there. Yeah? So we have investment company in there. So you can talk with them about, how do you access this? What kind of KPIs do you need to have? What is a meaningful measure when it comes to return on investment, for example, that would trigger your investment interest? So this are all together. There is, and that is what I said in the analytical part. There's a lot of discussions amongst the three of them, and not just on a theoretical level, but on the site level. We have that 3 existing social housing sites, and there they can talk it through. And I have to admit, it's much more difficult than we have even thought at the beginning. Yeah, we thought it's difficult, but it's even more difficult because they're so different, which is sometimes linked to different national legislation, that is linked to different legal setups of that social housing companies, but that is also linked to some of the social housing sites. Yeah, for example, in Trieste or in Denmark are on a very different level. Some of the social housing sites you would see they look like proper apartments. You could live in. Yeah, maybe in some in Denmark or so. If you go to some others in, in Portugal or some in Italy or somewhere, you say, I will never put my foot in here. Yeah? And then you have things like, okay, we discussed about, can we do an energy efficiency measure which saves X, which would be a proper case for an investment. And then you find out that the people who are living there do not pay any energy because they get it illegally. Yeah, they get it somewhere from the grid. Okay, it's just a fact. Yeah, you might not want that, but if that is the case, where is the business case for that for that person? You can tell them you can save some money. Yeah, you only have to pay X, and then you have you use less energy, and then the person says, super, yeah, goes home, says I don't pay anything. Yeah, and will never do it. So how do you overcome that? So there are difficulties. So this is what I said, the housing sites, Italy, Denmark, and Slovenia. We can just go to the next. The second one is, I don't know if you come to the figures, but before that, the one thing is that we have here the real sites to identify it, and to extract elements which are replicable. Because if you find a solution for the Italian site, that's fine for them, but that's not what the European money is for. Yeah, that's not what we are aiming for. So we're trying to get the replicable parts out of it, and to make it replicable, the second reasonable big chunk of the project is basically to create accessible databases which are linked to already existing databases like DEEP, what you know from DG Energy, de-risking energy platform, which was set up as a part of EFIX, the Energy Financial Institutions Group, 2013 plus. Yeah, and there are others from other projects. So we build interfaces on that we can access these information in both directions, and we can add the real information from the sites into it, so that investors can play around. Yeah, can say, okay, this works under these conditions. Yeah, these are real. This is not theory. These are real numbers. That is basically the second technical part in a way. You know, these are numbers you might know or not. Yeah, they're just showing the reasoning, the urgency behind focusing on the social housing sector. You see here, I mean, there's one thing is it looks extreme if you see the figures, yeah, and most people haven't seen that. And part of the job was extracting this figure out of the Eurostat database. They are there, but they're hidden. It's not that easy to get them out and to bring them to the surface to show. But here you see that you know, when on the left side here, so the poor population, when it comes to how you rate their income, yeah, 60%, 50% level, whatever it is, yeah, there's a rather high percentage of people who cannot heat up their homes. Yeah? So I mean, there might be a different path in any country in Europe. So you know, I'm from Germany. Yeah, the term energy poverty I never heard 5 years ago. I heard that from UK, which was totally unknown to me. Never heard about that. Yeah, and here you see it. Yeah, and these are figures. You see that on the very right side here, it's 2020. That is before the energy crisis. It's before Ukrainian war. Yeah, it's before prices have tripled or quadrupled or even more. So you know, I don't want to see how the bars go up in the last 2 years. If you can go to the and here a few more people basically who cannot pay their bills, and they have still to pay more to come. That is, you know, here you can make the link to the gender discussions we had, material and social deprivation. And left, and then you see left and right. Yeah, on the left side is the people who live in social housing. And rent at reduced price or free. Yeah, I mean, we have seen that this is 30-40 square meters. It doesn't look good, and you pay 100-150 euros sometimes. I mean, you know, what can it be? How can it, you know, with that money? Yeah, from an investor perspective. So what can it be? On the right side, you see basically what happens if there's someone maybe here in Brussels have paid off their loan for their nice apartment. Yeah, it's a totally different picture. Okay. Yeah. So this is other ones. I guess the presentation will be shared, so you can have a bit of a look on that. This is what I said before. You know, we're not innovating just for innovation purposes. Yeah? We're not coming up with the next big thing which nobody will implement in the next 15 years. It's called innovative finance more because many people don't know, but these tools exist in the market. And energy service companies know them. It's their bread and butter business every day. It is just, you know, there are many people in the ecosystem who don't know them, who don't understand them, and you have to show them, and you have to show it to them with examples. Not just paper. Yeah? You know, energy supply contracts, EPCs. I don't know. We work in a project. I think it was 5-6 years ago about it's called Investor Confidence Project. It was also about energy efficiency in industry, but also in buildings, not specifically focusing on social housing buildings in general. And 5 years ago, yeah, EPCs were used. But it's not new. It's all existing. Yeah, but in specific contexts, it's even less known than it's general known. So that now we have 2-3 slides on this one here. Well, that is the traditional model. With the energy supplier basically paying it, and then you have to pay a bit higher on the bill, or hopefully you use less energy, and with the investment it might net zero out. Some legal issues, freedom of change, suppliers. What happens with the bill? Is the supplier sitting on the investment or not? So this is just what you have to see then, and to check with each national legislation in a way. The next slide. This is anyhow the more traditional one. That is the EPCs. Even here you have differences. Yeah. These are the two main ones, and below the two main ones you can have even more specifics. But in principle, you have this shared savings and guaranteed savings. And if you go to the next one, that is the interesting one. Yeah. And this is coming a bit from the more financial partners in the project. That is about risk sharing. That is about who is taking the loan. And here you have on the bottom, you have the building owner, and that could be the social housing company. In some social housing contexts, the person who's living there is the owner, as long as he lives there. He's moving out, he's not the owner anymore. Rather complex legal setups. But the bank in that situation requires the owner to become the owner of the loan. If there's a default, then this is the person responsible for paying back. If that person is the tenant in the social housing environment, how creditworthy will that person be from a banking perspective? What kind of loan will that person get? Probably no, zero. The ESCO is in solutions. The ESCO can be a Siemens or a small company. The ESCO is a part who takes the loan. And then there's a deal between the building owner and the ESCO. And the ESCO is flexible in the contract setup. They can say, okay, it's not necessarily the tenant, but it can be the operator of the social housing company behind the tenant. Yeah, and then they can discuss on how they want to share the risks. That is the financial engineering side of it. Yeah. So this is what you can work on, and that is what we will see with the 3 sites, what works. Yeah, and with the sites we can prove what works. And then okay, and now to the Super Shine as the extension. Super focused on social housing. And okay, yeah, it's apartment buildings which are social housing buildings. Super Shine goes to the district because it's the social housing, the apartment houses are not alone. Yeah, they're in a district with schools and shopping and yeah, whatever it is. Plus, we said at the beginning there is decarbonization on the top, not explicitly mentioned so strongly, yeah, because it's more set energy efficiency and renewables, but decarbonization is the name of the game. So in Super Shine, that is extended to smart grid, to decarbonization of mobility, yeah, so whatever you can do in the district itself. And it is also still on energy efficiency and increase the share of renewables, but it is going, and it is still focusing on social housing, but it's going beyond. It's taking the district into consideration. So the shopping mall, the school, the other buildings in there. And it has, yeah, so there are partly overlaps. This one is led by APRE. Thanks. And which are, yeah, obviously also a very strong partner in Super. So half or 2/3 of the partners are basically overlap in both projects. We have also here pilots, basically, with districts in that sense. This time they're Denmark, Italy, and Lithuania. It follows from the methodology the approach the smart city projects did. So you have pilot cities and follower cities. It's the same here. Here are follower cities in Portugal, Spain, Turkey, and Serbia, who are looking, listening, who are engaged from day one, so that they can directly replicate that. That is helping us also to have reason to believe in the replication strategy if they are the first who start already replication. And what I said, because it's a Horizon Europe project, you have already this kind of co-creation. We talk about social innovation, because we talk about, in the proposal, we still talked about, and the proposal was written probably 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, yeah, about acceptance. We haven't spoken about acceptability yet in the proposal, yeah, but different to the Super project, there is an entire work package is only dedicated to develop the methodology how to involve communities. Yeah, so that is what you can link then to Bauhaus. Yeah, how to involve the tenants, how to involve the people in the district, so that they want that. That is not really part of Super. Yeah, Super discuss is more technical, financial, you can say. Yeah, so the social housing companies are involved, and the ESCOs are involved, and the investment community is involved, and the local authorities are involved. But it's not really going directly down to the tenants. I mean, the social housing managers who are spending half of their time inside the social house, so inside the apartments, talking to the people. I mean, they wouldn't do anything which is not in the interest of let's say, their clients, yeah, their people. But we don't have specific tactics, specific methodology, basically, to involve them to build together a solution. That is a strong part of Supershine. And if you yeah, here I would probably start to repeat myself. We have that 3 pilots: Denmark, Italy, and Latvia, as we said. It's about financing is still in the DNA of that sister or twin projects. Yeah? If we cannot go to financing, nothing will happen. Also private finance. Yeah, so we will also again utilize knowledge created through these public-private partnerships / EPCs, ESSCs. But the last one here is also what we see. We go also into smart mobility and decarbonization of mobility, so everything which is energy related in the district, but to a certain extent even a step beyond. Yeah, so there is you would see in the project areas referring to industrial symbiosis, to circularity. Is also referring to digital tools. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Goodness, luckily it is. So this is the extension basically when you compare it to the Super project. And that means also there's much more involvement of the local community. Yeah, because we talk about local SMEs. Yeah, so if you talk about circularity, so you talk about people. Yeah, small companies on the ground. How do you do that? Yeah, I mean, it's a person in I don't know in Latvia. You cannot just call them. So how do you do that? This is all part of a dedicated work package and goes even beyond what goes in Super, but it leverages all the knowledge from social housing pilots in Super. It leverages all the data basically built, and the database and the way it is presented is built in a modular way. That it took us ages to learn from, let's say, other databases we have analyzed and we would see as databases which failed, which are not used at all. So then we looked a lot of them through them and we said, okay, we don't want to replicate this. That is why we have a very modular approach. Yeah, so we depending on what your interest is, we can in a modular way add things. And we don't overcomplicate things. It's also about managing expectations. Yeah, it's about a database does not solve your problem. Yeah? A database does not do the job for you. It gives you reasons, arguments, hints, directions. That's what it can do. But otherwise, so many people believe you have a database and then the job is done. Yeah, that's not at all. Yeah, or that's the only source of information I need and I can convince everybody. That's not the point. Yeah, it's just to give. It's a starting point to give evidence. Yeah? If you will never be able to create a database out of information, which then you send per email to an investment company and they say, here are my 10 millions. Yeah? It will never happen. It will never happen. Huh? But it is the starting point. Yeah? It is the evidence. It is the trust building. And it has to be built in a way that it is not a one thing, not a project related thing, and then it disappears. It needs to be built up in a way that can stay rather independent. Okay. That is career through. Sorry. that is about some details. We said circular economy is in there. Yeah, it's about LCAs, SLCAs as well. These are on the next slide. You can see some pictures of the 3 lighthouse districts. And I think that's it more or less. So. That's it. Okay.
From Energy System Catapult Ltd. And she will present our project, Marine Wind, which is dedicated to overcoming, in particular, criticalities in social acceptance of floating offshore wind technologies. So, please.
Hi, everyone. Before starting, I'll highlight a few things because they'll come back as we go through. First of all, my name is Ines. We are based in the UK. So we are now associate rather than, we did what we did, but there we go. But here, for the sake of what we're doing, Catapult is an organization with 9 bodies, if you like. We're based fully in the UK, so there's no European branches, but we kind of work in everything from offshore renewables to energy systems integration to high value manufacture to satellites. So we're looking a lot into the space, solar, etc., and others. I lead the renewables team within the Energy Systems Catapult, and I think the key to what we are talking about here is it's energy, but with the multi-vectors. We talked about heating and cooling, transport and mobility, housing, etc. And the challenge will still be the same. The scale might be different. And I think a few people raised the point around investment. I think you touched on that earlier on, investment, financing, and how do we raise investment. And you also told the last speaker, I forgot your name already, you spoke about risk sharing when it comes to financial solutions. I'm recapping before I forget, so I will start. There was a point about social innovation as well, which is quite an important topic, because it doesn't matter what innovation we come up with. If it doesn't work for the consumer, then we are wasting our time, from the policy to everything else we're doing. Another point you made that was quite interesting is some of the where we need to be for net zero. There are some technologies that are not yet developed. So the research, development, innovation is still needed. I am going to talk big scale, but it doesn't mean that innovation is still, the SMEs, we need to still bring that at the forefront of what you do. We talked about gender a lot, diversity, inclusion, and there are different shapes and form about what it means, but skills will be at the base of everything we're doing here. Doesn't matter if you're, with all the different shades of gender, diversity, inclusion, but until we can bring, going back to the consumer, until every consumer can see themselves, can buy into what we are selling, we are not doing our job. So on that note, the Marine Wind project is one of the many Horizon Europe projects that we are leading with a few other European partners. The objective of it is so we're specifically looking at offshore winds. One of the big key of renewable, if we want energy security, all the trilemma that we all know about, we need something that we can rely on. We need to have it locally. We need to have nationally. And offshore wind is one that Europe can proudly say we have enough of. So let's explore this. Now, again, here we're talking huge scale, but, oh, sorry, I'm not changing here. Next slide, please. What I wanted to focus on in the next maybe 10 minutes is to talk a little bit about the challenge of where we are, that most people will relate to, an overview of the project and what we are about, what are we trying to do, the approach we are taking, and some details around the expected output. As a brief overview, this is a 3-year project. Yeah, that's fine. 3-year project started last late last year and up to 2025 October. So next slide. This is what we know. We all know this, so it feels like a broken record, but it's important to remind ourselves beyond everything we talked about is a system that we want to make sure that works for all of us. So the fair future, the fuel poverty, everybody comes along. So this is an interesting picture from one of the other catapults I find fascinating. Because we are tripling, we are growing exponentially. Social housing, everything we're looking at, we have to almost think more to make it work for everyone. If you click again, and this is kind of what we are doing here. If we're talking about renewables, and particularly I'm focusing on offshore wind here, wind as in general, the blue lines here just show you how much of wind we are producing in Europe. And the black line shows what we need as demand. And this is now. Now, if you remember the little battery picture before, we are nowhere near what we are talking about in 2050. So we have a huge problem, and it's not wind that is going to solve it. It's what wind is only one of the solution to do it. The next click, please. And this is again just kind of to show you where we need to be. We are talking in gigawatt here. We are talking huge capacity, and this is kind of where we were at the end of last year. This was from the Wind Europe report, and we want to get in the UK. We have a target of 50 gigawatts by 2030, 7 years from now. That's like almost tripling what we have in less than 7 years. The supply chain, you talked about innovation, the finance. I mean, it's one of those challenges that God knows how we're going. Well, we are trying to solve how we're going to get to it with everything that we need, material, diversity and everything, but it is a huge challenge. So without scaring you a lot, I'm going to talk to you about how we want to tackle a little bit of this problem So there we go. The net zero challenge is what we all talk about. We are talking about electrification of everything. Because if we're removing our gas and our fossil fuel, we need electricity. We need electricity for heating, for building, for transport, for power. That picture on the right is quite interesting. To get to the target we have, we need to install at least 650 turbines per day. Imagine the material, imagine the manufacturing, the supply chain capacity to make it happen. And remember, it's not only offshore wind, it's solar, it's bio, so not only do we need to come up with amazing innovation, but we need skills, we need manufacturing factories to also keep up. So huge challenge. The next slide is why we're about. So this was to give you an overview of the challenge of the sector as a whole, but where the offshore wind come in. So the marine wind project is about identifying the bottleneck of the floating offshore wind. So I don't know how much you know. It's a tricky one when you have an audience because you don't really know how much people know. So we started ages ago, probably Germany, Denmark, and all onshore. It was great. We had one windmill, the other, then it turned into big turbines. And then very quickly, social acceptability became a challenge very quickly. I don't want it to sit behind my backyard. I don't want it to damage the tourism. There were lots of challenges. And not only that, but it also caused traffic in cities. It also caused a lot of congestions. I came this morning, I was late just because it's Brussels and there was no wind turbine. Imagine where you have gigawatt of installation being done. So I guess the project here is to try and, so from onshore wind, we moved to offshore winds. One of the elements was we have better wind because there's less obstruction between the building and the turbine. We have more space, so we are not limited into how much where we are, but not as much as onshore. And we have the capacity as well. Then very quickly, we got to a stage where we use all the nearshore sites and we had to look further away. So Again, I'm going to give you an example of the UK. Very quickly, you get into deep water. Deep water, we are talking 100-meter deep. We are talking about 100-kilometer offshore. That brings another challenge. That means you cannot no longer screw your turbine on the seabed. That means you need vessels that can go all the way. The weather in Europe, we all know that. So with the development, with the innovation comes a lot more challenge, comes TRL, the readiness level of those technology, comes investment, who wants to invest if the risk is higher, who are the financial body, who is the pocket person that brings that on. So floating wind is the next step, and apologies for my phone. Floating in is, we can't avoid doing that because that's where we will get more capacity. Now we move from turbine that are about 3 megawatt of size to we are close to 15 megawatt in size. We can't really do that onshore. We can't do that near shore because of the footprint or the seabed. So as the farther we go away, the more we can kind of have that luxury of scalability. But it also means there's a lot of bottleneck that we need to tackle. There's a lot of bottleneck on the technology itself, the maturity of that, the policy and regulation, the social aspects. Because yes, it is offshore, but it still needs to be installed onshore. It still needs to be assembled onshore, the factory and everything, and the skill set as well. In addition to that, and that's the problem that has made a lot of noise lately, is so yes, we have offshore, so we have the winds, and sometimes we don't. On a beautiful day like this, we don't really get a lot of wind. Yes, on sea we might. What do? And that's where flexibility comes in. Should we start looking at storage? Should we start looking at storing solar when it's not needed, storing wind when it's not needed, and using it back? So smart grid, you talked about that earlier on. So there's a lot of challenges with growing a sector. Floating wind is the same. And the objective of this project is for us to try and provide awareness of these barriers, but also start developing some solutions from the policy side, policy and market, from the social and environmental acceptability, and the techno-economic side as well. On the next slide, this is to highlight some of the partners on the project. So we have 6 countries and half of the screen is hidden. So we have Italy with APRE leading the project coordinator. We have Spain, one partner in Spain, Portugal, Greece, Belgium, and the UK, 3 associate partners we are, well, 2 now. On the next slide, I'm going to touch maybe quickly, I don't know how we're doing with time, on the methodology. How do we want to do this? We mentioned co-creation a lot during this session already. What we have done is there are 3 things to this. On the policy side, for the people who know this, the government has pushed, all the government, EU, UK, etc., have pushed to get more renewables. And with that came incentives, lots of incentives. Let's get it done, let's get it done. Offshore wind was great until all the government are thinking, are we doing the right thing? How much? When do we stop? When do we get private investor to, because now we have provided security of the market, they should be able to take on project without the incentive, the support mechanism in place. So there's a lot of work being done on reforming the electricity market. Start looking at is, should we perhaps incentivize location? Because again, you mentioned some housing association will be more popular, better some places, and less so in others. Same thing, we might have generation in one place, which means they are close to the demand, the supply, and it might be cheaper there. And you have areas like Scotland or north of Scotland that has nothing, that will have very expensive electricity because they're farther away from the supply, from the generation. So there's that question again, should we start looking at regulatory framework and policies to encourage the generation? Should we look beyond national to regional level? should we start encouraging regional development so that we talk battery and flexibility and generation is encouraged? And that means the pricing, the location of pricing starts changing based on where you are. So that's what we are doing in the policy aspect. We are also working a lot in the social, environmental aspect as well, bringing in not only the big players, but all the way to the consumer. What does that mean for them, especially after the Ukraine challenge and all the electricity bills? Everyone wants to know how to save. So yes, some solution might not be as big to solve the problem, but a contribution from the consumer means they will make the changes. They will take all the changes necessary. So this is the approach we're taking, bringing in, creating labs in the 6 countries we talked about, and also getting the input from all the stakeholders. And on the next slide, we started pulling out some expected output. Now, if you bear in mind, the project is running till 2025, so we can't really claim anything yet. But this is what we want to do. We want to achieve a place where not only stakeholders, including consumers, are aware of those challenges, but some of the solutions that can be taken, short-term / long-term solutions, they have the knowledge, they have the capacity to understand that acceptability you talked about beyond, yeah, that's another project. Yeah, we never get anything from it. But it gets to the stage where you have energy communities, where people come together to actually sponsor or get funding for a wind turbine or a community or a local authority. So that's kind of one of the expected output. The next slide touch on the market. So some of the financial tools that we can provide to enable decision making, deployment, to understand slightly better what does it mean for this kind of regulatory framework on a long term versus short term. And on the last slide, not last slide, but the next one, touch on some of the other topics. So who do we want to bring in, and how do we want to make sure we stay in touch, we communicate, we interact with the stakeholders. And moving on to the last slide, I believe, and these are the impact we would like to achieve. I think at the end of the day, if you remember the first slide where the challenge was, we had offshore wind at the bottom blue and the huge generation. We want to make sure that this can be replicated elsewhere. It's not the last, there will be more innovation. And if we can take some of these aspects into other projects like wave, like tidal, like, I don't know, floating solar, then there is a chance for us to advance quickly to reach that gap. So I believe this is my last slide, and some contact. We have a website and my contact there if you need to. Flaminia is also part of the project, so she will be able to direct you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so our last project presentation, I welcome George Osayo-Wusu from European Biogas Association, and he will present Alpha, the project Alpha, dedicated to biofuel, and in particular biogas as a transition to biomethane and to the objectives of REPowerEU, among the other things. So,
thank you, and thank you, everyone. So within the next couple of minutes, 15 minutes maximum, or maybe less, we're just going to be having a discussion on so biogas and biomethane and the whole energy transition, and how we can be able to, in collaboration with some of these projects that we are going to look at. So the next slide. So, well, this just by way of content. So I'm from the European Biogas Association, and so we're just going to have a brief presentation or introduction to that, and then some benefits, with biogas, biomethane across Europe, with some data that we have even from the ADA, and then we'll look at the introduction to Alpha, what we are doing in that project, and what are some of the expected outcomes, and then as well as GREENET, which is also they are both in the same call in the Horizon Europe, and then so some actions that we will need to take on at the end of the day. Yeah, next one. So EBA then is an association with about 46 national associations from across Europe, 28 countries. We extend even beyond even some of these countries, with also some other companies across the value chain. So the next slide, you see that we have some 200 plus companies that we liaise with on regular basis, from producers, plant operators, all the way to research institutes, and then biogas traders. So we are looking at everybody in there, and then we work with all these companies. We are involved in projects and all those things. So you see that also in the next slide. So what do we do? Mainly advocacy, market intelligence. We do events, we handle policy updates, publications and research, and then networking, creating visibility for biogas and biomethane production and its uptake even across Europe in general. So we try to make sure that we more or less become the voice, to push for policies and to ensure that there's that inclusion in the market or in the value chain. At the end of the day, with our national associations, with the companies, we try to give market intelligence. We try to give some data on what is going on within the market. So I wouldn't really spend so much time here. We can just move on with that. So biogas and biomethane. Before we get into the project, I just want us to have a brief, like a background as to why these projects and the societal acceptance and the things that they are doing even across Europe. So we just want to look at biogas and biomethane for a start. Yeah. So currently we can see that when it comes to energy production, there's that need. The conversation is already going on, and we can tell that from locally we can already produce most of this energy with some of the feedstocks from our industries, from agriculture. That is what even the Alpha project is looking at, and so biogas is already helping with some of these things at the end of the day, because we are producing not just energy but also other byproducts, or not more or less like co-products, let me just put it that way. So like digestate and then biogenic CO2, which can then be used in various aspects. So at the end of the day, what are the outputs in transport? We are looking at that, the use of bio-LNG, bio-CNG for transport. We are looking at biomethane in buildings. We've seen conversations along this line, and so even in electricity and power, so it cuts across. Once we upgrade biogas to biomethane, the possibilities become more or less endless. So in Europe, currently we stand at 18.4 BCM being produced. For the last decade, we can already see that biogas production has seemed to be stalling a bit, but then with biomethane production, there's a gradual increase, and now with the 35 BCM REPower EU targets, we are already seeing that, like we've already seen even some of the technologies that are going to help with some of these energy transition are yet to even come. So in the years ahead, we can see that there's going to be a much increase in this production across Europe. Currently, we have this 18.4, which is more or less like a 20 plus or 20+% increment from the previous year. So currently biomethane alone is doing around 3.5 BCM. And then even in the years to come, because the data from 2022 is even yet to be analyzed, we are seeing some projects in 2023, 2024, and then ahead. So we can see that already there's going to be an increase in this production potential. Now, why do we need to produce so much? Because at the end of the day, the end users are also that high, and then they are a lot on that side. Because we can already decarbonize with buildings, example, with the use of hybrid heat pumps. So we can see that we can use biomethane in this regard. Also, in some industry or industrial processes, such as the use of biogenic CO2 in the food and beverage industry, the use of high temperature, some levels of temperature for industrial processes that we can achieve with normal fossil-based electricity. We can already use biomethane to produce some of these high levels, and at the end of the day, we'll be able to achieve that. In power supply, there's that constant need for power supply, and biomethane is we'll be able to bridge that gap, at the end of the day, so that we'll have a constant of like all year round, and then we'll then have to really be so dependent on external imports, but then locally we'll be able to produce the energy that we need. And in transport, like I already mentioned, we can either liquefy it, we can compress it. We already have so we have bio-LNG, we have bio-CNG production, even for vehicles, heavy duty vehicles, and there's also that conversation already going on, even at the European Commission level. So let's move on. Aside these main benefits that I already mentioned, there are also the society extra benefits. Let me just put it that way. So here we are looking at three main benefits, like the society, the environment, and then the economy. So biogas production, at the end of the day, we are looking at jobs being created. So that's a huge social impact. And even by 2050, we are looking like 1 million jobs being created from this the production, because there are going to be new plants in place, there are going to be new technologies in place, the production is going to increase. And so we are going to see that there's also an increment of even full-time jobs. Already on the environmental side, we can see that there's going to be a huge saving on greenhouse gas emissions, more or less 60 metric tons, which is going to be a lot, within a year. And on the economic side, some numbers are already in there, and we are going to see even an increase in that. So like 5.7 billion a year is going to be something that even we can already see. And that will be another thing I'll talk about later on regarding the APRE project that we are going to see for livestock farmers. So in view of this, we even had a study with Guidehouse on monetizing, the whole system, the whole biogas system, to see the production costs as against, the benefits. So you can already see that based on the two models of even production, even anaerobic digestion and thermal gasification, I know some of these things might be a bit technical, but then at the end of the day, we are looking at it that job creation, energy security, greenhouse gas impact, organic waste processing, the benefits far outweighs the production cost at the end of the day. The externalities in there that we are looking at are far more. So like I mentioned in the previous slide, we are not just producing the gases for just use in the industry and for use in like transport and other things, but on the societal level too, we are looking at it that at the end of the day, there's going to be huge economic turnout, 7.78 billion already by 2030. By 2050, we are looking at somewhere around 283 billion euros. That is EU, UK combined. And so we can see that the prospects are already high, even on some of these sites. Yeah, next slide. Right. So on the back of these information, or with this in mind, EBA also partners with some other organizations across Europe. We involved in some of these projects to ensure that biogas, biomethane uptake, or the scale up of biogas and biomethane across Europe is also achieved. And two of these projects are the ALPHA project and then the GREENET project. So the first one is the ALPHA project, which is looking at biogas production from livestock or from manure. So we want to tap into the use of manure or agriculture from this perspective, to be able to ensure that we are reducing emissions, and to ensure that even livestock farmers can also have a form of incentive, or to be able to generate other form of income even from their farms, not just from the livestock alone. So here the approach is that we are going to provide, you can also click it again for me so that I can have, and then again, so that I can have everything and then I can just explain it. So the approach here, is that we are trying to support these farmers with some of the technical challenges that they may come up with, in terms of having some of these biogas plants on their farms, and how they can increase some of these or benefit from the use of manure that they are already producing on their farms. And so the idea is to create some technical and business modules that will support them, that will help them overcome some of their challenges when it comes to financing, when it comes to technical support, when it comes to production support, permitting and everything. So so with other project partners on this one, we are trying to see how best we'll be able to support them in this regard. We'll be able to create, more or less a policy recommendation based on country-specific needs. So within the hubs, we are looking at 6 countries. So we have Spain, we have Slovenia. If I miss something, I think Paul can correct me on that side. So we have Spain, we have Greece, we have Italy, we have Belgium, we have Slovakia, right? And Denmark. Yes, thank you. So so these countries these are the target countries for this project. And so we are looking at policy recommendation based on specific needs or country-specific needs, if I should put it that way. And then at the end of the day, an open source information will be created for even replication of some of these results and for other farmers to be able to also come on board. So on the next slide, how we've been doing this is through what we call the co-creation workshops, where we are trying to engage livestock farmers, across Europe in some of these countries or within these hubs, to be able to educate them, to be able to meet their needs, specifically what they want to do, what do they need exactly, what information, and how best we can support them, to be able to achieve their goals or to achieve their mandates. So at the end of the day, we'll be able to see that, well, some 50 farmers, that is more or less the target. We are going to support them in this to be able to ensure that whatever challenges that they need, whatever support that they need, to be able to use manure from their own farms, and then to be able to produce biogas, to be able to create some form of extra income on that side. And so that is a bit on the Alpha project. We can discuss it further on. My colleague on Paul is here, Flaminia is also around. We can definitely give more information. You can also visit the website for more information and updates on what we are doing on this project. So I think the next one that we're going to talk about is the GREENET project. So the Alpha project is more or less specified on livestock farmers, and then the use of manure. But then the GREENET is looking on a broader scale, biomethane in the target. So what we have here is target countries. Let me put it that way. So the idea here is to facilitate a wider uptake of biomethane. So we are looking more on the policy side, creating more country specific. So you can see that there are some similarities between these two projects. They are all looking at increasing the use of biogas, biomethane. And then the approach here is looking at it from a country specific, level. So what are the policies or in terms of the market, the society, and then the frameworks that are available? Because we do realize that some countries, are able to, we have more or less, like in this project, we would refer to them as the advanced countries. And then in some countries where we are calling them the target countries in this project, it's more about how they will be able to transfer knowledge from these advanced countries to the target countries at the end of the day. So what is working for them? What is working for Italy? What is working for Germany? In terms of their policy, in terms of their market uptake, what are some of the support schemes that are available? What is helping the biomethane markets work or grow in some of these countries? And then we try to replicate them in the target countries at the end of the day. So countries like Greece, like Spain, we are trying to see, okay, what do you also need? So as the Alpha project is looking at livestock farmers, this one is looking at more or less the whole value chain. What do these country, or what do these people need, or what does these target countries need? And then we try to support, also on that. So it's also more or less a knowledge transfer being done, in both projects. And so the approach, we can move to the next slide. So the approach here is to evaluate, the framework and the policies, like I said, in the advanced countries or in the countries that are already there. And then we try to see what are the frameworks, what are the schemes, support schemes, what are the technology. We are even looking at the, production routes. So what are some of the technologies that they are using, their upgrading systems that they are using to produce biomethane from biogas, and how are they going about it? And then we transfer some of this knowledge to the target countries in this project at the end of the day. So, and in all, we are going to see like more or less a contribution to biomethane being used in various sectors, in various industries in these countries, in different industries. And then at the end of the day, we will see that more or less the REPA AU target that we're trying to see, the use of renewable energy is also achieved at the end of the day. So I think that is it for me with this project. And before I leave, there are 5 things that I think I would want to talk about with the actions needed to be able to fully realize the use of renewable energy systems. And I think I like the fact that, you know, we're talking about the women inclusion in some of these systems. We've already also had discussions on the use in buildings and heating and everything. And so you can already see that there should be, you know, recognized policies along all these lines to be able to ensure that, you know, there's further commercialization. We can see that, you know, we need to use these feedstocks that we already have. We have most of them in these countries. We need policies to support some of these things to be able to ensure that at the end of the day, even for agriculture, that is even for the Alpha project and even for the GreenET project, which is also looking at the wider biomethane uptake, we can already see a positive direction on that. And then at the end of the day, we'll maximize the use of not just biomethane, but the co-products as well, so digestate, biogenic CO2 that we can already use in various things. So before I leave, we are going to have more of this discussion at the end of the year, between 24th to 26th October, so the EBA conference, which is happening right here in Brussels. I'll just give you a minute to scan the QR code so that you can, yes, you can also register. And then, yeah, so if you have any questions, you can have them here. You can also meet in Brussels for the European Biomethane Week, and more of these conversations are going to be, you know, on board. So, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, George.
Okay, so we are, I mean, not so late, but a bit late. So if there are any questions from online participants on site, so otherwise you can always send them to us from APRE, and we will spread the contacts and the presentation and all your questions and give you all the. Yes, we're not having. No, it's not. Just mine is not updated. No, it was not. No, it was not. False alarm, everybody. Okay, so we will share. Okay.
I have a burning question. I am sorry. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
yes, no, don't worry. Okay, since we're here, let's.
When would you have preliminary analysis of that? And if you know it in advance, do you know it already? Do you have use cases that are developed under green-level symbol systems? First question, we have any oil and there's some easier rates of latitudes. And like we know moving for so fast, it can constantly. So we will continue updating that as the second part of your question, you know, we're not using your regulatory but we can check it out, or maybe we can check it out. Because we are looking for use cases in the uptake of different renewable technologies, both onshore and offshore. Whether, since there are regulatory barriers, if the project has encountered a regulatory sandbox, meaning for the deployment to take place, there is an exception in the regulatory framework that can be under the energy law or agricultural law. I mean, that your case is peculiar because it has interlinkages with the sector, environment, agriculture, and energy. So that could be, I was thinking more in your case, but I know that offshore wind is such a wide sector for the cables infrastructure that is the interest. So just a question mark because it's in this particular moment, as you mentioned, the manufacturing and value chain, we are looking at also the innovation part of manufacturing, the regulatory sandboxes, etc. I would be really looking forward to reading your preliminary analysis from both of you. So
I'll get back to you because in the UK there's a huge problem in Europe about the retail trends. We pretty much being able to keep up. And Ofgem, one of the regulatory bodies, there's a call for evidence now there looking at ways to introduce air exemptions or ways to manage the queuing. So I'll get back to you for the information.
I'm
on our side. Yeah, so from the upper project, very quickly, so we did our first analysis with interview surveys to explore the barriers of biogas and asset farming more in general. And policy ones were one of them, mostly for permits to install biogas plants. So now it's exploratory with not the barriers, but what we will do is start some policy recommendations, but that's at the end of the point.
Thank you for your reply.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if Miriam wants to add something as closing remarks, or if we can.
Cases that your projects brought to the table today. The social perspective, the social lens in the energy sector is crucial, as we learned today. So I hope that we will have the chance, maybe in the future, in a couple of years, to get back together in order to discuss whether there will be advancements in the different perspectives that we touched, like the regulatory and the other. Then I would just thank you for your participation and all your contributions, and let you get a good lunch.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and don't forget to take flyers from Marine Wind Project and leaflets from Alpha Project, just to be thankful for the